Ladies and gentlemen, these are going to be the top 14 best weapons to use in Black Ops 6 Zombies. Citadelle Des Morts is nearly upon us, and I'm sure you guys want to know what the best weapons in the meta are to use at the moment. And after of all the balance changes we've gotten and some brand new guns added to the game, there's quite a lot that have made this list, and I've also made some adjustments to some of the builds that I've had prior. So stick with me. I'm going to give you 14 amazing zombie builds that are easily the best weapons to use in zombies. I'm going to show you how to use them, what situations they're best in, and how you can get fully prepared for the brand new Zombies map DLC 1 coming very, very soon. All I ask in return, if you guys enjoyed the video, just leave a like if you would be so kind, and subscribe, consider it, you know, if you want more videos like this. I'll have plenty of videos that will come out after the release of the new map, and has some really cool stuff on the way for you. We're also getting dangerously close to 600k, so thank you guys very much. I greatly appreciate it. But let's not waste any more time. I mean, let's just get right into it. So coming in at number 14 is our first LMG ever. This is the PU-21. Listen, I heard y'all in my last video saying that no LMGs was a crime, and I kind of get it. And I will say that I'm not overly impressed with the LMG still right now, to a point where I think they're top 5 or anything. But if you're gonna pick an LMG, this is easily the best one. It's got better DPS than anything else in its class, and I think the way to use this most optimally is a couple of things. Obviously, with the CHF barrel, this is going to be one that I recommend on almost every build, not all of them, but most of them. And also, I'm gonna recommend a tac laser. Now, I've been playing around with this playstyle a lot, where you're not really ADSing much, but you have a tac laser to kind of like, you know, still sort of a cross between ADSing and hip firing. This laser allows you to do that, and I think it works very well on this particular weapon. Now, the key with the tac laser is you need weapons that don't really have a big ratio between body and headshots, and what I mean is that sometimes there's a big punishment between getting a body shot and a headshot. Some weapons have it better than others. For example, sniper rifles are really bad here, but this gun is not so bad if you're hitting the body, so you can afford to be a little less accurate, and this is the build that I would go with. I would say its strengths are that it has a ridiculous amount of ammunition, and you're pretty much never going to run into ammo problems with this LMG. And it has decent mobility once you have stamina up and once you have these attachments. It's not too bad to get around with, and the tac laser makes it feel a lot more mobile than it probably would if you were just locked down ADSing all the time. But its weaknesses, I would say, is that it still does get outclassed in terms of raw damage by some of the other guns on this list, and it is an LMG at the end of the day. It's kind of clunky and slow, and it doesn't have the best range, to be honest, which is kind of strange for a weapon like this, but it's pretty good still, and I would recommend having this as your zombie build. Moving on, and coming in at number 13 is the LR762, a previous top 5er for us, and I still think it's an awesome weapon, but it does appear this got silently nerfed a little bit, like in a couple of patches ago, to where it's not quite as strong as it used to be. It's still very powerful, don't get me wrong, but it's very situational. Now, obviously, this sniper rifle does not behave like a traditional sniper whatsoever when pack-a-punched, and that's why I'm building this particular variant around that. You don't need to be hitting headshots. You don't even need the CHF barrel that will deal more damage to the body, because you're not really shooting the body a whole lot. You're going to be shooting low or even the ground most of the time just to get these AoE explosions, and the most important attachment right here are stuff for movement and also rapid fire. Like, you want to be shooting this as quickly as possible. This build hasn't changed too much since my last video, but it's still a really great weapon, and I have it on this list, and I think you should put this as your zombie build, and it is worth using for this situation. It's a great AoE gun. Coming up at number 12 is the LW3A1 Frostline. So I'm still messing around with this a little bit, and this is a fascinating weapon. I was going to include it on my previous video, but I wasn't satisfied with my build, and I honestly don't know if I still am for this weapon. I'm still tweaking it, but it's quite interesting. It has some of the highest theoretical DPS in the game, but of course, DPS is only theoretical in some sense, because obviously this is assuming that you're always hitting headshots, which is easier said than done with the sniper rifle. Like, it has an incredibly fast fire rate, and you can make it even quicker with the rapid fire attachment, which I'm going to say is very important, but I kind of treat this like an up close, like quick scoping weapon in a way, so I like to put a red dot on it as well. Now, that means the biggest advantage to using the Frostline is it absolutely annihilates critical points. Like, it's the best gun in the game DPS wise for hitting critical points. So, you know, if you're shooting the mouth of an abomination, or hitting an amalgam in the face, or a mangler without its helmet, something like that, it's going to pretty much one-shot everything. However, like, that's great, but the problem is, the disadvantage is it weirdly gets stopped by armor, and it doesn't do a ton of damage, and if you hit the body, you don't get a whole lot of reward either. You really need to be hitting headshots, and you're greatly punished for not, and it feels kind of strange to, like, just one tap a mangler, and if he has a helmet on, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Like, you know, once it's broken, you're obviously going to one-tap him, but it feels like you kind of need to pair it with a gun that can deal with armor better and can knock plates off and stuff, because again, against armored enemies, you're not going to be one-shotting them like you will just about everything else. Even when it's fully pack-a-punch, it just feels weirdly weak in that sense. But for criticals, there's no beating the Frostline whatsoever. Coming in at number 11 might be a surprise to you. This is the ASG Shotgun, our previous number 1. And you might think, why has this fallen so far? Well, it's a couple of reasons. There's been a couple of patches that have come out, and the ASG has been slightly nerfed, but also I think that the updates have made other guns just sadly surpass it. I mean, I love this weapon, and it's still great, don't get me wrong, but I don't even know if I would say it's top 10 anymore. It's excellent, and I think it's a solid beginner weapon, and I'm still going to recommend this build. I haven't really changed this a whole lot since the last time we looked at this. Maybe I've changed an attachment or two, but the build is more or less the same, and the playstyle is relatively the same as well, and it's less about this gun getting worse and more so about new weapons being added and also getting buffed and just being better. So we still have quite a few guns to go. Even though this one is solid and I still would recommend it, I would put this as your zombie build, and if you come across it in game, it's obviously not bad at all. It can do just about anything you'll throw at it, but I don't think I could confidently say it's the best gun in the game anymore. Coming in number 10 is the KSV SMG. This one is also a previous weapon that has appeared, and for great reason. I would say this build has only gotten better over time. They've made some adjustments to ARs and SMGs, and this one does see some benefit and has been buffed, and I really like where this is at in the game. This is an excellent choice, and I think you really unlock its full potential after you unlock the rapid fire attachment and specifically the extended mags. Now, I had played with some like tac laser styles with this where you're kind of like half ADSing. I don't think it's really necessary for that. I think actually fully ADSing or just straight up hip firing is going to be the best for this weapon, and the advantages to running the KSV is it's incredibly mobile, great DPS, great magazine size, and one of the best insta-kill weapons. I know that sounds kind of weird, but there's weapons that are better on insta-kill than others. Like anything with a high fire rate is going to be excellent for that. The only disadvantages really to speak of is that sadly it doesn't do the best against armor, and it honestly is just sort of average or mediocre when it comes to critical hits. It's good, don't get me wrong, hitting criticals, but it's not like the Frostline where it's just going to annihilate something. Coming in at number 9, we have the SVD Sniper Rifle. This was another previous top 5er, and it's dropped a little bit, and it's still great, although I am finding that this is a lot more of a situational weapon as opposed to, you know, incredibly versatile and some of the best weapons on this list. I just don't know if it necessarily competes with those ones at the top level, but still, I would probably go with this build. The thing is, this is a very special gun. For those unaware, it's a sniper rifle that, when upgraded, becomes a hybrid sniper shotgun. So when you're un-ADS'd, you actually get this larger hip fire box, and obviously it just behaves like a shotgun, but where you can still aim down the sights and pinpoint accuracy, and this shreds hordes, especially if you're able to just pile everything up, and then you dump a couple of bullets just right through the head and the entire horde dies. It's amazing for that. I would say that that's probably the play style you want to go with. You want to go for a slow, methodical, hoarding up zombies and just taking them out with like a single magazine, and the interesting thing is here, I'm actually not going to recommend the fully biggest extended mag 2, and the reason for that is the ADS time feels kind of clunky and very slow, given that it's a sniper rifle. Kind of makes sense. I think the extended mag 1 is enough without sacrificing too much ADS speed to where it feels very sluggish, because that is a big disadvantage here, is that it feels slow and clunky, and it's kind of situational to use. It's also kind of a high skill weapon. I would say high risk, high reward. This one, it's not the easiest thing in the world to use, and I would recommend a little bit of practice and trying to get a feel for this weapon before you really just go all out with it, but it's good. It just takes some getting used to as compared to a lot of other guns. But moving on, coming in at number 8 is the AK-47. I also had in the comments people telling me that I need to give this one another try. The thing with the AK is it has amazing theoretical DPS, and more so than that, it has just great, like, real DPS, honestly. It's a great feeling weapon. It kills things. It kills fast. It's just very powerful. That much is true. The thing is, I just don't like its properties and the way it handles, most specifically when it's pack-a-punched. So this is something you may not know because it's very subtle, but the AK-47 when pack-a-punched is actually a burst weapon, and you only notice this by just flicking your trigger really quickly, because if you hold it down, there's actually no like manual delay between the bursts. It'll just keep firing. It feels fully auto even though it is a burst weapon. It's very strange, and so that plus the fact that when you kind of just start firing it, the recoil has a very I think, kind of broken pattern, and it can lead to your first initial shot feeling very off, and that's very important in zombies. So I think that it just handles quite strangely, even though it is a powerhouse of a weapon, and I've built my zombie build to kind of mitigate that to some degree and to heighten its very powerful strengths. I would try this out, and I would say this gun is not going to be for everybody. It feels just very awkward to use, but it is hella strong, and it's super easy to handle other than that weird recoil. Coming in at number 7 is the XM4, and I'm pretty happy where I'm at with this gun right now, attachment-wise in the build, although I'm going to say there's two variants. So in this gameplay, I'm using the new blueprint, and that comes with the extended mag 3, and I also like somewhat tack stancing a lot of my assault rifles. I just think that's a playstyle that works. However, with the XM4, when you run the extended mag 3, it pretty much blocks all your vision using the tack laser. I just don't think it's very practical. So if you're my recommendation is going to be this: if you're using the tack laser, I would recommend extended mag 2 because you don't get your vision blocked. However, if you're going to be using a red dot and ADSing more, then go with the extended mag 3. That's completely fine. But I would say there's kind of just two versions of this. Otherwise, I would leave all the attachments the same here, but that's kind of like where it crosses the line for me. I just don't like tack stance with extended mag 3. It just blocks your entire screen. Doesn't look good, and honestly don't think it's worth it, but that's pretty much all I would say. It's still the king of consistency by far, has some of the best DPS numbers in the game, and it's just an amazing weapon. Coming in at number 6 is the Krig C. Now, I'm going to say this is similar to the XM4, although maybe slightly more specialized. You've got a bit of a slower fire rate, and honestly, the recoil is kind of intense for this weapon, just for being an assault rifle. Even with stamina up and even with dead shot and all this stuff, and trying to mitigate that recoil through attachments as much as possible, it still has a pattern that you're going to have to learn a little bit if you want to be consistently hitting headshots. And for this one, I recommend the extended mag 3 with a red dot. I think that's where it performs the best because critical and headshot kills are very rewarded here, and I would say this is the most consistent way to get that. But this is a great feeling assault rifle, similar to the XM4 in a way. I would just say it's slightly more specialized, and this is the build that I would go with here. It's a new weapon, and so if you don't have it yet, I would go and unlock this and try it out and see what you think. Coming in at number 5 is the Stryder Pistol. Now, I had said previously that a lot of the pistols are just kind of mid in this game. Most of them suck, and they're just not really worth using. Now, I started using the Stryder Akimbo, and that completely changed how I feel about the weapon, because Akimbo is an interesting attachment. What it does is basically give you another gun, meaning essentially double firepower, but you kind of split the same ammo pool between two guns. So we'll talk about that in a second, but the Stryder Akimbo actually has some of the best theoretical DPS in the whole game, but it also is one of the hardest guns to use. And the reason I'm saying that is because it has like a weird fire rate cap. Like, you can be firing both very quickly. You kind of need to be paying attention in order to do that. But if you're firing one really rapidly, it like caps the other gun's fire rate. I'm not really sure exactly why, and I think maybe if this is a bug, if they fix this in the future and give it a more or less uncapped fire rate for both weapons, this might be the best gun in the game, or at least one of them. The thing is, it does unbelievable headshot damage, and so if you can chew through armor and make sure you're hitting headshots, it's a little harder to do when your weapon is akimbo and you're shooting from the hip, but it can still be done, and especially the lasers help with that. But hitting headshots just absolutely melts enemies. Even into higher rounds, this is very viable, and obviously because they're pistols, you get incredible movement too. The only downside really to speak of, I would say, is that it chews through ammo very rapidly, so you're going to be visiting ammo boxes a lot. I think that's the only downside. Coming in at number 4 is the GPR. One of my most honest recommendations is that you use this assault rifle specifically with a red dot, and I tried to like tack laser this one. I spent a long time trying to have a build where I'm tack stancing this thing, and I just don't like it as much. I think that just because of how rewarded headshots are, specifically in Black Ops 6, and specifically for the GPR as well, like you kind of get punished for hitting the body or hitting armor a lot, so you want to be hitting headshots. That's where you're going to get the most rewarded, and again, I think the most consistent way to do that is by ADSing with a nice red dot. And so this is the build that I'm going with for my GPR, and I think that this has been one of my favorite weapons to use just because I feel like it's really rose through the ranks, especially with the recent AR buff. In that patch, its critical damage got increased even further, even though it was already good. Its range got slightly buffed as well, and its base damage was a little better. So the GPR has just gotten better since the beginning of the game, and I cannot recommend this one enough. The only downside, I think, is that it doesn't have an awesome magazine capacity capacity, even when running some of its biggest options. It's still a little bit mediocre in that case, I guess, but I mean, that's really its only weakness. You're going to be reloading a little more than usual, but I mean, the damage trade-off, I think, is easily more than well worth it. Moving on to number 3 is the Tanto SMG, which is another weapon that I feel has genuinely only got better with time. Even the most recent patches and stuff have kind of buffed this, so it's gotten better since the last time we've talked about it, and I think I've finally been satisfied and settled into a build with this one that does require some kind of optic, most specifically a red dot. I've tried to use iron sights on this one, but I've noticed that the Tanto, because it's one of the slowest firing weapons, gets hugely rewarded for headshots, and I feel like when you're running iron sights, you are going to be missing the headshots to some degree, at least compared to if you have a nice red dot, you're going to be hitting the body more, and you just don't get as much rewarded with that. So I think it's very important on the Tanto to have some kind of nice optic, because it's going to do great with that. But otherwise, my build is pretty much the same, and you're going to notice that this weapon just does crazy DPS. It's got a good magazine size, great mobility, not a whole lot of downsides to this one other than its fire rate, I think. Even with rapid fire to mitigate that, it's still going to be on the slower end. Like, you're not going to make this into the compact or something, but it gets the job done, and you get way better, you know, headshot reward because of its slow fire rate. I think this is an awesome weapon, easily top 3 for me. Moving on to our number 2 spot are the GS45 pistols. I'm going to be honest, these have just remained absolutely where they are in the meta. My build has also remained the same. Like, again, you can only put 5 attachments on pistols, so there's not a whole lot you can really do to change this one. I will say, if you're grinding for camo specifically, you're going to want to run the single one and just put on the CHF barrel instead. Otherwise, if you're going to be pack-a-punching it and using it, then of course run Akimbo. That's the only kind of thing I would maybe recommend to change, but most people are going to be using this as Mustang and Sally. They're going to be using them Akimbo, pack-a-punched, all that good stuff, so this is going to be my build recommendation, and I think this is one of the most solid options for high rounds and an easy, reliable pick for probably going into DLC 1. But moving on to what possibly might be our number 1 spot, I actually have 2 number 1s. And that's because a certain weapon came out as I was making this video pretty much. So our coming in at number one is the Sirin 9mm. Now this is a brand new weapon we're getting in the hit list event. You can actually use this right now though, ahead of time, if you don't want to wait for the community to unlock it. Now the thing is, at the moment, it only has a handful of attachments unlocked, and I'm not sure if it's gonna get the full arsenal. I somehow feel like it's not going to. This may be the only attachment selection for it, so it's a lot easier just to build this one out, but I'm going to show you it anyways. This is what I would recommend. This gun is very strong. This is like an FMG pretty much, and it's really good. If this had a Akimbo, it'd be broken. I mean, straight up be the best weapon in the game. It also weirdly has an iron sights attachment, even though it comes with iron sights. They're just different, so I don't really know why they're... I mean, I do like the ones that you unlock a little bit better than the originals, but I mean, they're not much different to be fair, but still, I wasn't expecting a little 9mm FMG like this to be just this beefy. It just makes no sense to me, but it's great because this just absolutely decimates elite enemies, specials, gets rid of them. You can just destroy the Terminus boss fight if you bring this in. It's a little, you know, kind of like dinky looking weapon, but don't underestimate it for zombies. It's one of the best guns, if not the best gun in the game right now, so that's why I wanted to include it here. Please go out of your way to maybe, you know, find out how to get this one, or, you know, just, I would put this in your arsenal. And the build luckily isn't too hard because there aren't a whole lot of attachment options right now. If new ones do get unlocked, I will make a build for this in the future that will try to optimize it further, but for now, this is going to be how it is. The only problem is ammo is a big problem with this weapon. It just doesn't have the biggest capacity. That's really it. But coming in at our actual number 1 spot is going to be the Akimbo SOG. Now, initially when the SOG came out, similar to the Stryder, I wasn't super impressed. I thought it was just very okay. I mean, I thought it was like high average tier for the SMGs, but I didn't expect to be so good Akimbo, and I should have known because it's one of the only SMGs you can go Akimbo with, and that makes it just absolutely on another level. This has the highest damage and DPS numbers in the entire game, and the crazy thing is it's not even really close. Like, these are by far at the peak mountaintop of damage compared to the entire arsenal of Black Ops 6. Like, these are easily the best guns, just raw damage, raw power wise, period. If you just want just raw strength, use the SOG Akimbo, but that does come with a few caveats, meaning that it's a bit high maintenance. So for example, it's kind of a glass cannon. You need to be consistently hitting the head for this to, you know, feel as powerful as it theoretically can be. Otherwise, if you're just hitting armor and lots of body shots, it honestly might not feel that strong. You need to be consistently using an Akimbo gun, which are not, you know, known for their accuracy, and you need to be hitting the head consistently. You also need to constantly sort of pull down because these guns tend to kick upward a lot, and the laser helps a little bit with that, but still, I mean, you're going to need dead shot, and even having dead shot and basically having more accurate hip fire, if you want an augment for that, might be helpful here, but that can absolutely unlock the potential of this weapon. It's really good on paper, and if you get good enough with this, you can really see its strengths. But the biggest weakness to this, the absolutely fatal flaw, and that might be a deal breaker for some people, is that the ammo sucks. Because of that damage, you're just chewing through ammo all the time. Dude, I have to like visit ammo boxes like grandmas visit the bathroom, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so much. All I'm going to say is you're going to annihilate any enemies, even in high rounds. It can hold its ground, but you're going to be visiting ammo boxes very frequently, so you may as well get comfortable and familiar with them because you're going to be spending a lot of time there. It's that problem I described earlier where you're using an Akimbo weapon, so you're getting double the firepower, but you're splitting an ammo pool between two guns where it's usually only meant for one. That's kind of the only downside. They don't really give you much more ammo if you're using Akimbo, sadly, so that is the fatal flaw in this. However, I'm going to still say this is the best gun in the game, and this is the weapon I'm going to be using to tackle DLC 1 personally, so I would kind of recommend the same. But anyways, this is my build for it. Let me know what you guys think down below. If there's any guns that I missed that you feel like should have been on this list, definitely leave it in the comments, and make sure to subscribe before you go. It's completely free. I would really appreciate it. Leave a like on the video as well, and I will have more videos like this as more balance patches and more weapons come out. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.